Time to create the male Automoblox figure. This won't be an exact copy, but it'll be a very close approximation, appropriate for the engineering student. So we're going to start with in 2D Sketch, of course, and we're going to go ahead and choose the XY plane. We'll rearrange this. It'll end up being kind of sideways, which we can easily fix later on when we change the orientation. But it'll make it easier for us to draw it in the XY plane to get started. So we're going to start with a rectangle, and instead of a normal rectangle, let's choose something different. The 2-point center rectangle, and you'll see why I chose this in just a few minutes. So we're going to choose the center and go outward, and we're going to choose 5.75, which is the correct dimension for the Automoblox Male. It has a square base, and so that's what we want to start creating first. And we click OK. Finish sketch, and we're going to extrude this. We're going to extrude it the other direction, and you'll see why in just a minute, because we want to see that center point. So we're going to extrude this a total of 0.3, and we're extruding it away from ourselves. See the arrow? And we click OK. Great. Now we need to put an ellipse on this surface, and we need to put it right smack dab in the center. That's why I chose the center point rectangle. I'm going to click on the plus by the extrusion number 1, right click on sketch number 1, and I'm going to share that sketch so that I can now see this center point. We're now going to put a sketch on this surface because we need an ellipse on it. So we're going to click here. We'll click front to bring that back. We're going to project the geometry of that central point because that's going to be handy. That's what we want to know. To find this central point, if you hadn't used the 2-point center rectangle, you wouldn't have this central points. But you could choose construction and choose line, and then draw 2 construction lines going from one corner to the other corner. You'd probably want to project the geometry so you can make sure you get right in the corner, and then you go diagonally from this corner to this corner, and then where they cross, that would be your center. So that would be another way to find the center if you didn't use the 2-point center rectangle. Now that we've done that, we're in sketch. We want to draw an ellipse, and we want that ellipse to be a particular size. There's a couple different ways of doing that. One would be just to draw the ellipse and then add the dimensions. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a minute. But instead, I'm going to actually choose construction and line, and I'm going to draw a line from that central point to the right, 0.236, 236 thousandths, and right click and hit enter. And then I want another line from the central point, and that one is going to be a length of 0.155, or 155 thousandths. And we right click and OK. So there we go. We have our 2 dimensions. We're going to choose ellipse. Make sure we're on that central point, and we're going to go outward until we reach the end of that 236 thousandths line, and then we're going to go up until we reach the end of our 155 thousandths line. Now I made the mistake of not changing out of construction, and maybe you realized that and said, oh, Mr. Riedinger, you need to change that. Well, we could change that right now. I'm going to right click on the ellipse, choose construction, and be sure to left click. If you don't left click again, then you won't have that maintain that object line. It'll stay as a construction line. That's wrong, and that's not what we want. This is good. All right, we can hit finish sketch, and now we're ready to extrude. We now want to extrude this ellipse 0.115. Choose protrude, choose extrude, and the profile needs to be chosen. So we want to make sure that it's only that section right there, and we're going to choose 0.115 or 115 thousandths, and we click OK. Excellent start. we need to put a 2D sketch on this surface. We need to choose project geometry so that we know the size of that circle right there, and we want to project that ellipse into our current sketch. That's what we wanted. We're going to choose offset. We already have the ellipse shape that we want, and we just want this shape to be 0.050, 50 thousandths larger than the original ellipse. The block, the big square, is kind of like their feet, and this is kind of like, I don't know, their ankles, that first ellipse we drew, and this is kind of their legs, torso, kind of body thing, you know. It's like they have these teeny little legs, I guess, that's about the size of your ankles, and then this body. I mean, that's just the shape it is. So we're going to go 0.050 and make that a little bit bigger. Now, earlier, before I told you that I was going to show you how to dimension an ellipse. When you dimension an ellipse, it's a little unusual. So if I click dimension, let's say I wanted to change the size of this ellipse, and I click on it, notice that here's our long axis. All right, that's our long axis. And if I bring this down and continue to go straight down, we have the long axis, still the long axis. If I go to the left, long axis. All right, you could do it either to the right or to the left. But if I want to do the short axis, no, that's this one right here. So there's the short axis there as I move up and down, or I move side to side. There's the short axis. So that's how you would dimension the axis if the short axis and the long axis, if you hadn't drawn those construction lines to the right length like I showed you. So we'll go ahead and cancel that. Well, this is exactly what we need, this ellipse right here. We're going to finish the sketch. And we're going to do a little extrusion. We're going to do something a little bit different than what you've done before, and that's we're going to taper this extrusion. All the extrusions you've done up to this point are probably very straight, right? You've cut straight in, or you've joined or created material straight out in a linear way. We're going to taper it this time. So we click extrusion, and we want the inside and the outside. Sometimes students make that mistake, and it just comes out hollow. It's not the end of the world. And this is going to be extruded 0.84 or 840 thousandths. But if you've ever noticed before in this extrude dialog box, we have shape. You've looked at these and checked these out before. But there's also this more tab. And we go to more, you see it says taper. Very interesting. What can we do with that? Well, what if we add an 11.4 degrees of taper? You see what just happened? Let's go back to 0. See, now it's really straight. We type in 11.4, and whoa, that's weird. All right, and pretty cool, right? You know, it's kind of nice if a male figure kind of has kind of a V shape to it, right? Well, that's the way these little Automoblox male figures are designed. They have a V shape to their torso, and we just added one of 11.4 degrees. So let's click OK. Very nice. So if we click the home view, the next step is to add a axis, a work axis, right through the center of this part. So we can do that right here. Work features, and we can choose axis. We're going to click on the pull down menu, and we want through the center of a circular or elliptical edge. Through the center of a circular or elliptical edge. So we click there. So we're going to click on this outside one, and we can see a preview right there. There's our axis going right through the center. That's great. Now it's time to reorient this. So if I click the right side and turn this guy right side up, and we're going to change this orientation in just a few minutes. But first I want you to see the top. This is the long axis of our ellipse. Okay, this is the short axis of our ellipse, this way. We want the surface that's parallel to the short axis of our ellipse, and that's this one here. So I'm going to click Start 2D Sketch. I'm going to click that surface, and this is what it should look like. If after you click Sketch, you create your sketch, it looks like this. If this is your work surface, your sketch surface, That's wrong. This is the long axis, and it shouldn't look like that. It should look like this. And now that we've created a sketch on the short axis, you can see our work axis going right through the thing. We're going to right-click, Slice Graphics, and now, by doing this, we've removed all the solid material in the foreground. This is similar to a section view. This is going to allow us to see the geometry at the sketch plane. This provides a much better visibility of the sketch plane because we've removed all that obstructed material that's between us and our work plane. This is great. Now we want to project the geometry of that work axis onto our sketch plane. We got that going straight up the center. So now we're going to draw on this sketch plane. So we're going to draw on this sketch kind of an outline of the material that we want to save, and everything outside of that is going to get cut away. So this is another new step. It's called a mid-plane or symmetric intersect extrusion that we're going to be doing in just a couple minutes. It's going to be helpful if we project the geometry of everything here. All right, now that we've projected the geometry, we need to draw an arc here. And this arc is because shoulders aren't flat like this from front to back. Our shoulders are kind of rounded, right? From the top, from the peak, it rounds down towards our chest, and it rounds down towards our back. And then we're going to create something that looks similar to that. So we're going to choose arc, and I'm just going to choose a spot out here in space. I'm just sort of eyeballing this, and just click here, go straight across, make it nice and flat. Type in 90 degrees to make sure it's nice and flat, and click there. And we want to make sure that we hit this spot right there. So we get a nice green dot, click, and choose OK. Now we're going to add some dimensions to this. So from one corner of that arc to the other corner, that needs to be 1.2 inches. And from this corner, to make sure that this is centered, to the central axis, this needs to be 0.600. So I wasn't too far off. Now you can see that the peak is right there at the center. Very good. Now we can draw the rest of the outline. The outline that's going to go around this piece that is going to save everything on the inside, and everything on the outside is going to get cut away. So let's choose some lines. We want to choose that corner of the arc, come down to this lower left corner here. Now you notice it's not drawing a line anymore. So make sure that you click again, because you have to come across the bottom here. If you don't do that, then his entire foot area here, this block at the bottom, will get cut away. It's a common mistake that students make. We'll click here and up to this corner, and we right click OK. So everything inside of this is going to get saved. Everything on the outside is going to be lost. How are we going to do that? Well, let me show you. We click Finish Sketch, and that looks pretty good. And like I said, we're going to do a mid-plane, or also called a symmetric, intersect extrusion. So we choose Extrusion, or Extrude, and we're going to go Symmetric. And this is our profile. This section here, and this piece here. So it should look something like that. And you can see it's extruding to the back and forward because I chose symmetric. Currently it's just doing it at 0.84, that distance. We want all, and not join, not cut, but we want this one right here. And that is going to cut away. That's called the intersect, and it's going to cut away everything on the outside of it. And we choose OK. Did it do anything? Well, let's take a look. Ooh, check that out. See how he has rounded shoulders now? Not too rounded, just a little bit. That's going to make him look a little bit more realistic than having those flat top shoulders. All right, that looks excellent. Now, I think it's time to choose the front. So this will be our front, and I'm going to right click and set that as front. And when I click this upper right corner, I'm going to set that as the home view. Fit to view. Now when I click home, it looks like that. We don't need this sketch anymore, so I'm going to turn off its visibility. We still have this work axis here, which is still important. We're going to give the little guy put a head on top of his shoulders. So we need to create a sketch on this axis. We can't actually put a sketch directly on the axis, but we could put a work plane on it and then draw a sketch on that. So I click work plane, I click the axis, and then I'm going to click the front. Actually, let's go over here to the side, so that way we're perpendicular to the side. And there we go. There's our work plane at 90 degrees. And this is where we're going to draw our face. We're going to draw our head. So what does it look like? What should a head be shaped like? Well, that's an interesting question. We could draw, and many of my students have, drawn a circle. And it looks like they have a big lollipop head. Well, heads really aren't shaped kind of like that. They're more rectangular. And sometimes it is helpful for students to put kind of a rectangular shape there first, and then sort of add their head on top of that. How about if we project geometry so we know where to start? So we've chosen rectangle, and I'm going to come right down here to this corner, and we'll call that his neck. And this will kind of be the shape of his head, more or less. We're going to work on this. We're not going to give him a square rectangular head. That'd be kind of insulting. So let's back out of here and see. That's not too bad. Not too bad for size. But we're going to turn off construction now, and let's give him some real shape. We could use circle, we could use ellipse, but I'm going to use arc. And I'm going to start here at the top and angle down a little bit. And then this will be the shape of his head. And you got to be really careful, because if you start getting above this line here at any point, he's going to have a dimple in the top of his head, and he's going to look really silly. So we want to make sure that we are below that line. And on the side, this arc should maybe only taper slightly. Just bulge out a little bit on the sides. On the bottom, for his cheek, his chin, we're going to bulge out a little bit more. But we don't want to go too far. And then finally, the bottom of his chin. All right, that's a pretty good start. We are above the line here, like I said I didn't want to do. So we'll adjust that so we're just below that line. And we'll trim away the part that's above the line. We could try and smooth this out. What would that look like? We could choose tangent. And choose that first arc and the second arc. And the second arc and the third arc. Ooh, that ain't pretty. I think I'm going to leave it like it is. And he just needs a neck. I'm going to come in here a little bit. And just give a little bit of arcness to his neck and say OK. And let's finish this off. Need a line from here to here. And we need to trim away that bottom portion of his chin. All right, that should do nicely. Right click OK. If you are concerned, you can always do a closed loop just to make sure that this is going to extrude correctly. So I'm left clicking my way around. See? Little problem right there. All right, let's see what happens when we finish the sketch. We're going to do a revolve. And our axis is right there. All right, what is our fellow going to look like? Yeah, interesting. A little on the large side. All right, so I look forward to seeing what yours look like. That's the head on mine. I think this could be done better, and I'm sure you will. I think I've done others better than this one. But, yeah, it looks all right, I think, to me. It would look better with arms. So I'm going to turn off the visibility on that work plane. And there you go. There is the Automoblox Male.